Nice.
Cool. Okay. We're off to the races.
All right.
No pun intended.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hello from Siena, which you told me was built on a horse track.
Yes.
Or something.
Yeah.
You've been here before. You've been to Italy.
Yeah, I've been a bunch of times. There's like a pit in the ground in the city center.
That's where I went today. I went down. I went to the pit and lied around. And I saw two separate weddings.
Yeah, I was watching your stories. I love that. It's like very like Fellini Amarcord. Nothing's changed, and they're like riding around in tiny vintage cars.
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe Italy's actually like this, and Italians actually talk like that.
Like what? Like mamma mia, that's
hello, yeah, grazie, prego, prego, welcome to the podcast.
So how's your Italy experience going?
It's been okay. I've been working a lot.
Okay.
And I had the weekend off, but then I moved to Siena to keep shooting. And I was in like a resort in another part of Tuscany called like Bagno Vino or something. And that was a little bit, it was like a very Germanic, like thermal spa that felt very Welbeckian or almost like a Michael Haneke movie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the food was not, I finally had good food last night.
Yeah.
And in Siena is a little better because it's more walkable. I felt very like kind of alienated in the countryside, and everything was kind of resorty and not very good.
Yeah. So your take is that Italian food is relatively mediocre and overrated?
I do think it's kind of overrated, but I'm open to having my mind changed. You know, like I kind of, everyone's always talks about how they like go to Italy and have like a bowl of pasta that was like so simple but so good and like made by a 100-year-old like nonna or whatever. And I definitely haven't had anything that I've been like, the food in New York is much better.
It's the simplicity of the ingredients.
The freshness.
Yeah, they just like dump some olive oil and like basil and whatever.
A lot of olive oil. Yeah. Who cares, you know?
That's an interesting take. I think maybe it's because you were at this particular resort that possibly caters to tourists. I don't know. I'm one of these people who's very much eat to live rather than live to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I've had two really good culinary experiences in Italy, which may also not be representative, but the first one was like at this pizza joint that was like a total tourist trap in Florence. And it was like a cheese pizza that tasted like meat. It was like so delicious. It didn't have any meat on it. And then like the best dessert I've ever had was like an affogato at a truck stop somewhere in the middle of Italy.
That's what I would love something like that. I think in Siena I'm coming around, honestly.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, Tuscany is kind of a dump, but then I went into this town that was very beautiful, and now Siena is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like a nice medieval city. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess you can be open to having your mind changed. I don't know if Italian food is like the best food in the world. A lot of people seem to think it is. And I agree with you that like New York has really stellar food, just like casually on every corner.
I just love a New York slice. And I don't like the primi secondi,
Yeah,
I'm
many
like
levels.
Maybe if I was actually on vacation, I'd be more willing to like indulge in like the multi-course Euro thing, but because I'm like tired and working and I don't want, I just want like to eat something normal and not have to communicate so much with Italians. No, they're great. They're lovely. I feel very lucky to be here, and I am having a nice time.
Yeah, but everything is closed on Sunday, like you were saying. So we're recording this over Zoom.
Yeah, I brought my mic, but then I have like a newer MacBook that doesn't have a USB cord, which is so fucking annoying.
Yeah, it's gay.
And I couldn't find a converter anywhere in Siena on a Sunday.
How do you feel about
what are you gonna do?
Stuff in Europe being closed on Sunday?
Lazy, indicative of their like lazy. Yeah. I think it's what, you're a fan?
Good or bad? No, I'm not a fan because I'm an American and therefore I'm used to like 24/7 American amenities, but I appreciate that they're holding on to, they're like hanging on to this much more humane way of life. I can appreciate it, but I think it feels like realistically it's just like a matter of habitation. If you're used to things being like open and available on demand,
efficient.
Yeah.
It's just, I lost my wallet again at the airport. And the last time I lost my wallet while I was traveling, I went to Switzerland, which we all know I hated. And when I got to Geneva on a Sunday and I was like trying to figure out how to get my life together without my wallet, and there was like nothing I could do.
Yeah.
How when I really soured on it. Our business manager sent me a new debit card. So I'm fine.
Well,
I sorted it all out.
You know, I'm getting a new debit card too because somebody defrauded my account by spending $500 at Muji, which
how did that happen?
I don't fucking know, but I think it's such a fake and gay and laughable thing to like buy stuff at Muji. Like if you're gonna defraud somebody, you have to like go big or go home. Like go up in Bloomingdale's, get yourself a silk eye mask. Yeah. Get yourself a piece of furniture. What are you doing buying tiny pencils and like plastic containers, you loser?
Maybe they needed some bins. They just needed to get their life together a little bit.
Yeah, they needed like a lint roller and a Swiffer.
Toothbrush holder.
Yeah, I was like
aroma diffuser. The aroma diffusers are kind of expensive.
Yeah, they're fine, yeah.
That's a high price point.
Yeah. So yeah. But
your physical card wasn't stolen. They like made some kind of online
they like made
purchase?
Some sort of they like
pathetic.
I feel like more like a boomer than ever. Yeah, I'm like one of these old people that's vulnerable to email phishing scams.
Boomer.
Yeah, I have
boomer problems.
I mean, like Ben Shapiro is really on my shit list now because ever since we spent that $4 a piece to subscribe to his clickbait news outlet, I feel like they sold my email to a bunch of like weird political email lists. So I get like these crazy emails that are like, Anna, are you a patriot? Are you sick of this country going down the toilet? And I'm just like, leave me alone. I can't like unsubscribe.
It was all worth it though, because now we know what's really going on
in the world.
Yeah.
So when are you back?
I'm back next week. I'm back on Tuesday.
And Siena's your final destination?
I'm gonna take the weekend to maybe go to, I don't know, if anyone has any recs, I guess.
Yeah, give her that cheap Ryanair rec.
I was gonna maybe go with some of the cast to like the Amalfi Coast or something because I finished shooting.
Okay.
But I want to go swimming and I want to do something kind of relaxed, but then I also want to see like Venice. It's hard. There's so much and I'm kind of I don't feel too invested in any of it. So I could kind of do anything. So it's hard to know what the right move is for like a weekend jaunt with some of my colleagues.
Yeah. Well, I've never been to the Amalfi Coast and I've been to Venice, so I would probably say go to the Amalfi Coast because you could probably swim and have some good seafood, and I feel like Venice is like a tourist trap now.
And it's really hot.
And it's hot,
in Italy right now, so it seems like I think the Amalfi Coast probably also is. Well, there's not that much tourism really because of the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
So it's actually a good time maybe to do the like Rome or something. Yeah, but I'm the only one who's like a total Philistine who hasn't ever really been to Italy.
Yeah. Well, there's a first time for everything.
Exactly. I'm learning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I did like the bulk of my traveling with Eli right before COVID hit because I'm like a provincial bumpkin from like landlocked central Jersey.
I do feel when I talk to Italian people, like I'm making fun of them when I try to speak Italian or something.
Well, do you ever have that thing that, like, I have this thing about around all people with accents, I just want to kind of gently, benignly mock them? Like, not in a mean way.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of mimic their accent, and then I have to, like, stop myself, like, moments before I do it, because I'm like, this just seems really rude and unacceptable.
I've been doing it constantly. I'm always like, oh, grazie, yes, it's delicioso.
It's like,
kind of like laughing. But people don't do that when they come to America.
no.
They don't like they're not like, hello. They don't do some weird affect when they come to the States.
Yeah, they're not like, hello, aw shucks, yeehaw.
I'm gonna pay for this with my credit card.
How's the rape meter in Italy?
Rapey, big
it's
time.
Rapey, okay.
Big time, kind of. Yeah, not really. I don't want to travel alone because I'm a codependent person to begin with, but also because it's just not safe for blondes, you know?
No.
For a gorgeous blonde like me alone. The rumors are true.
Yeah, they love and want to marry blondes.
Yeah. And they're looking at me they're all undressing me with their eyes, Anna.
Yeah, they're looking at you
frankly,
with their
it's exhausting. With
their dark eyes, with their oily eyelids and vague Arab flavor. The Italian men are like really rapey, like hands down the rapiest people I think in Europe.
Really.
I've never been to Albania, but
I wonder when they'll get their like Me Too moment, because the French are kind of rapey as well. They're having, a bit of a reckoning.
Yeah, but the French are like
there is an Italian
rapey.
crew member on set who keeps DMing actresses.
Really? Like he's going down like a Rolodex?
Basically, yeah. And one told him like, stop, please. This is like unprofessional. And then he did it again.
I mean, I remember like the first time I went to Italy, I was like 16 and my sister was 14. And we were like in a tour group with my mom and my grandpa. And it was like the worst thing ever, because when you're 16, you're like horny and adventurous and you want to hang out by yourself and not be surrounded by like a tour bus full of boomers in sun hats. And I remember like the bus driver was this 36-year-old bachelor, Gennaro, who like lived with his mother. And by the end of it all, like we were like going across the country, he was like banging the tour guide, who was like one of these like horny, big-breasted British women that looks like Dido and travels to Southern Europe to shack up with gigolos. It was like that kind of vibe.
The Brits have a whole thing with Italy. It's like their kind of way of accessing a more libidinous kind of like savage lifestyle or something.
Yeah, the British women love going to like Greece or Italy and like getting their identity stolen by some like gay for pay gigolo.
Or straight for pay, I guess. Yeah, you get your back blown out by Italian stallions. Some of them are hot, for sure.
They're okay. But they look, it's crazy because Italian men in Italy look like skinnier, more refined versions of Italian men in America. Like the dress code is the same.
Yeah.
It's totally like hardwired in their DNA to wear like true religion jeans with like bedazzled pockets. And like
I saw a lot of like Fred Perry.
Yeah.
And like bedazzled denim at the resort. But those were Germans too. That's just kind of like a European,
the Philip Plein
European vibe.
They love like a soft driving moccasin and like
no
transition
socks.
Lenses. Yeah. Basically they dress like soccer fans. But I remember like by the way, if you have a chance, you should also go to Sicily, which is like my favorite place in the world because it's like not Italy. It's like very weird. And
I've been told to go to Sicily, but it's a bit of a trek.
Far, yeah, it's a trek.
And I'm flying out of Rome, so I don't want to.
Logistics
are not my strong suit.
Yeah, you have to really have somebody else do the kind of the planning for you, which is like why I was very grateful to Eli, because he did everything and I just went along and like pointed at stuff I wanted and like bitched him.
Didn't he have a tour manager?
No.
Oh. Cool. That's nice. That's nice of him to take his provincial girlfriend out.
Yeah. Usually he has like handlers in the respective countries and they make things easy for you, especially like in China where the white man, the round eye, is not allowed to roam free.
Totally.
But everybody was really nice. But Sicily was really fun because I got almost raped so many times. Like, I don't know if I ever told the story on this podcast of how I like swam over to some rock in Taormina that had like an estate on it, and some guy like came out of it.
This is when you were like a teen?
Yeah, I was a teen. I think I have told the story, and this guy just like basically invited me to like have sex with him in like open air, which I kind of regret not doing because I probably would have gotten an STD, but it would have been like an even funnier story. Yeah, it would have,
memorable experience.
And I remember just like peeing amongst the lemon trees, and there was like some guy jacking off.
Wow.
They're really horny. They're like they're like satyrs.
So horny.
Yeah. And I'm not even blonde.
No, but you're gorgeous.
Thanks.
You've got those full lips.
Yeah.
I'm horny. It's like, well, I've been here too long, you know. I feel a little
that sun will make you horny. Yeah.
A little too. I'm very, very tan.
Yeah, that's great.
I would show you my tan lines if I was on cam, but
well, I'll see them in a week. I'm really happy and proud of you for getting a tan, because that's like an important rite of passage for the summer. And I'm like pasty as shit, like a weird shut-in. But I love like a nice even Italian.
It's been a long time. I think I've really had like a gray kind of cast to my skin from being in New York and like not going outside during like the pandemic.
Yeah, eating canned fish.
Which is good for your skin and
hair. It is?
Omega-3s, babe.
Oh, true. But
yeah.
What about
nice
the mercury
oils.
Levels?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
My skin looks great, but my teeth are falling out.
And I have chronic fatigue. Yeah. I don't know why I look so sickly, but I'm looking much better.
I think it's literally like the vitamin D deficiency of living in New York City and not ever going out in the sun.
Or like when you do, there's so much like trash and stuff around.
Yeah, which is like also why COVID was so bad in New York, because everybody is like packed like sardines. It's dull, it's gray, and nobody is not getting hygienic. The vitamin D levels that they need. I saw a raccoon on the street yesterday. It was really cute.
I saw you posted a pic. It was really peering around.
I wanted to hug it, get rabies.
Oh, they are so cute.
They're so
I
cute.
love their little hands.
I was like, do you want to meet the baby? I'm in the stroller.
Come here.
But you're lucky that you get to be in Italy, like in the warmth, eating mid-range but still good food, because all there is to do now in New York is like follow this boring ass mayoral race.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
I have no idea, but it's I mean it's the usual thing. This guy Eric Adams, I think, basically kind of swept the outer boroughs, and the New York Times published a map that was essentially kind of like a racial and class map of New York. So all the kind of people of color and working class people were for Eric Adams, who's kind of a typical establishment Democrat with a law and order record. He's like a former cop.
Nice.
Yeah. And then if you look at the map, like Williamsburg and East Village went to this woman, Maya Wiley, who is the AOC endorsed candidate. The one that had the line about overcoming trauma on her bio of her website. Yeah. And it'll be interesting if one of them or somebody else, it'll be interesting no matter what happens, because the guy who's running on the Republican ticket is a guy who we should have on the show, because he's
the guy with the berets.
The guy with the beret, yeah.
What's his deal?
He's a local eccentric freak. He's like an OG New York. He started the Guardian Angels, so they were like the subway, the grassroots subway vigilante group in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah.
And that's the guy. And I thought
he started them. Wow.
Yeah.
And we're going to run against a former NYPD cop.
Well, yeah, I think it's like the perfect like cherry on top to this kind of year-long saga, because it's if Eric Adams gets the nomination, it's going to be Law and Order running against a slightly crazier version of Law and Order.
Vigilante.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been spending a lot of time with a former cop here in Italy.
Who?
He's an actor.
Oh, okay.
But he's
a former cop.
He was a cop for 20 years in the NYPD police department.
Okay.
And I love him.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of full like Blue Lives Matter now.
You are. Yeah. Cops are cool.
I'm like,
you heard it here
I'm like,
first.
actually like refund the police.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it and he was like, well, of course the police department should reform, but for that to happen you need training and that takes money. And I was like, yeah. Actually, no brainer.
Well,
he's one of the best guys I've ever met.
Yeah, I love like the good cops who have like large arms and they're like daddy figures.
He's great.
Like,
yeah.
They protect you.
Very good vibe, just a nice, like,
how's the bod?
Cool, humble guy. I mean, he's not, great. He's wonderful.
No,
he's tall and strong.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like, the whole like reforming the police, which I agree with, is like a bigger issue. You have to kind of reform and rebuild communities. I think most people want, of course, a police presence in their communities, especially if their communities are as we call like vulnerable or underprivileged, but they want the police force to look like them and they want them to be part of the community. They don't want some randos running up in there.
Totally.
But yeah, so that's, everybody around me has been talking about this mayoral race and I'm just like,
I mean, we should care about it more. We do live in New York. Yeah,
I should stop being a mincy little bitch and like register to vote here, because I've been here for like 11 or 12 years at this point. There's no excuse. I'm like registered to vote in New Jersey. Yeah, I'm a New Yorker.
You are a New Yorker.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how, like, because they did this ranked voting thing where you tick off your first, second, third, whatever, fourth, fifth choice. It'll be interesting if Eric Adams wins. It'll be interesting if they fuck Eric Adams somehow and appoint this Garcia woman or this Wiley woman. We'll see.
How would they? I thought he was ahead by a wide margin.
I think like I think through the ranked voting thing, the Democrats could really kind of pull a rabbit out of the hat and do something. I'm not sure how it would work, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah.
Bernie would have won, etc.
Yeah. Anyway.
We have kind of a skimpy docket.
Yeah.
McAfee? John McAfee found dead by hanging in a Spanish prison cell.
And I guess the question on everybody's minds is, did he get Epsteined?
Yeah, which he said basically he got a tattoo that said whacked.
Yeah.
And basically said many times that he wasn't suicidal and wouldn't kill himself. So if he was found dead, but he is so unhinged that it's exactly the kind of thing, it seems highly plausible that he would say that and then kill himself.
Well, so he was facing like a kind of bevy of financial crime charges in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Tax evasion. And then also like pumping and dumping crypto.
So he had like a multitude of different indictments. So he was also 75 years old. And I don't know what your take on this
75?
75, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. He seemed younger. I guess that's the well.
He had a young spirit. He reminds me of he's like this kind of like old school, rugged, high tea male who's
libertarian.
Also, like he reminds me of like Burt Reynolds or like Charlton Heston or something. He
Yeah,
like
a dying
looked,
breed.
yeah, he looked like an actor. Like he looked like he could be in soaps in the 80s and
Mm-hmm.
90s. Um,
Totally.
Not gonna lie, probably a one on the binary for me.
For you, for real. For
Yeah.
definitely a 0 for me.
Well, because I like rugged, disgusting, awful men.
I like a barrel chest, but I just like a more cerebral vibe.
Yeah. This guy had like Dan Bilzerian vibes. But
Exactly.
I don't know. For me, it's like,
R.I.P.
yeah, R.I.P. John McAfee, rest in power, rest in white
I'm,
power.
I mean, also, I, it's not out of the realm of possibility for me that anyone would fake their death
Yeah,
for
exactly.
various reasons. And
Yeah,
he seems like a great candidate for something like that too.
I think, okay, here's my take. I think that he was 75. He's
Hmm.
really, it's totally conceivable that he decided to end it all because, spending his golden years in a jail cell, like dealing with like permanent litigation is not a sexy option, especially for a guy who's used to living a life of like jet setting and hedonism and also
And he's
dramatizing his jet setting and hedonism.
exactly, and not, he's obviously not like a coward. Like he
Yeah.
could pull it off.
Yeah, totally.
And creating all this like assassination mystique around himself is also kind of in line with something that he seems like he would want.
Yeah, like I really think that he orchestrated kind of a performance art prank because he saw what had happened to Epstein and he knew that his fate would be debated posthumously forever and ever. And that was like his
Exactly.
last act,
I agree. I basically completely, that seems totally plausible.
which,
That's
it's pretty
more
baller.
plausible to me than him. It seems more plausible even than him being murdered.
Yeah.
Because I
I feel
think
like
if
Epstein was definitely murdered, but McAfee, I'm going to go with
100
suicide.
percent,
Yeah.
yeah, same. It's things aren't what they seem. But he also didn't he say he had like a dead man's switch that like if he was murdered he would like release all of this compromising information he had, and it
That,
seems like none of that has like
yeah.
come to light yet, so
Yeah.
I just doubt it.
Yeah, I think that like he's a good crisis actor and he's like keeping everybody on the hook in the afterlife, which is really cool.
I actually think he the drone footage of Little St. James that I
Mhm.
used in Scary,
Mhm.
I kind of had a feeling that maybe he was the one who took it,
Wait, what makes you think that?
because he's likes to like float around the, that zone, and like
Okay.
probably has an eye, like whoever took it either has an island of their own or
Right.
access to an island or some kind of boat, like to be close enough to operate a drone over Little
Yeah.
St. James. I think it just seemed kind of like something an eccentric. Was he a billionaire?
Maybe.
Millionaire?
In any case, he would probably lie about that, like Kylie Jenner style. Also, he claimed he had 47 kids.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And
Well,
he's,
maybe. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
there was
sure
that.
he's busting nuts left and right.
Yeah, there was like that comment about him considering ladyboys women.
Yeah,
He was a,
very
an
cool. Very
eccentric.
progressive.
Yeah, can't accuse that guy of transphobia. Um,
He it's the one thing you can't accuse him of.
but like I was reading the New York Post article about this, and they were saying that he has like a 10
Same.
count indictment for evading millions of dollars in taxes. That he skipped paying taxes from 2014 to 2018 um, on income that he had made through speaking engagements and selling his personal story for a documentary and doing consulting work. And then also he and an accomplice allegedly bilked Bitcoin investors out of some 13 million in two schemes. So on which he made a $2 million profit. And to me, this is like a joke. This is a kind of like chump change. Like he seems like a small fry all in all. Like anybody who's a kind of like eccentric raconteur and has too much of a footprint is always a fall guy, is a scapegoat. You know what I'm saying? Like the real tax
Yeah.
evaders and like
We would
vampiric
never even
pedophiles.
know.
Yeah, they're so bland as to be totally invisible. They're like t-shirt dudes.
And they're smart. They're discreet. They
Yeah.
have some offshore bank accounts. They have like some place in the Caymans, and they're like ghosts basically. I think
Yeah.
the real sickos.
We just would never hear about them. And I mean, like, you know, it's funny that he was nabbed for tax evasion because, I mean, literally no billionaires pay taxes. I mean, we were talking about, briefly mentioned this like ProPublica story about like Bezos and Elon Musk and like all the kind of head honchos who just like don't pay taxes. And you know, it's also like, didn't Elon Musk do a pump and dump scheme with like Dogecoin?
Basically, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I
people
don't
were
really
mad
know
at
how it
him,
works.
but nothing happened. I also noticed Nassim Nicholas Taleb was melting down on Twitter over Bitcoin, which to me means like one of two things. Either he has beef with somebody over an investment, or he's creating like drumming up some fake controversy so he can make a power move like later. Like all these guys, you
Interesting.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. Men are so pathetic sometimes. I just really found McAfee's whole shtick, and not to speak ill of the dead, but just so kind of this very masculine kind of torment that I don't
Yeah.
relate to or find endearing or really all that interesting.
Well, it's gay and melodramatic. He really does remind me of like Burt Reynolds or Sean Connery or like Kirk Douglas, like these guys who were like really kind of like manly men on screen, or again, like he's a total soap star, but who are actually just like um, female style narcissists who like to make it
Exactly.
about them and are kind of like, you know, like lachrymose and like entitled or whatever. He
Yeah.
has that vibe. And I think he was really an expert at kind of manufacturing fake controversy around himself.
Yeah. So this is totally in line with he died as he lived.
Yeah. Being a faggot.
Yeah.
But being a drama queen. Being a drama queen, yeah.
Being desperate for, yeah, like attention and intrigue and seeming more interesting and important than he actually is.
Yeah, which is like why he's the perfect fall guy.
Well, fall guy for what?
Like for whatever. I mean, he's a perfect also like distraction. Like people are going to be talking about him forever. Or not a fall guy, but he's like a perfect kind of scapegoat for like the greater systemic fact that millionaires and billionaires are constantly defrauding the system at all times, don't pay taxes, are doing all sorts of like speculative stock market schemes.
Mm-hmm.
That the system is basically primed, it's rigged for it.
Yeah.
And he's like the designated villain, and he's kind of like a comedy style villain.
Exactly. With yeah. The hookers and the boats and the didn't he like have like a scatophilia thing too?
That I don't know. I haven't.
I just heard.
I mean, he would. Nothing is off limits. I don't think he's a fall guy in the way that like, or a scapegoat in the way that, you know, Madoff
like Epstein was
or Epstein was, because I think like Epstein, in spite of his crimes, again, was kind of the sacrificial lamb of like a deeper, darker conspiracy.
McAfee, I think, is more of a lone wolf, a maverick, a maven.
Yeah, who capitalized on the Epstein myth on some level.
Exactly.
Because he saw an opening there for a way to like pump his own rep in the afterlife. I can't believe
he was so old.
Yeah, he has that Kellyanne Conway thing where he looks chewed up and like kind of like a formerly attractive person.
I'm gonna see if I can find a young pic of him.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Because he got rich off the antiviral software.
Yeah.
Oh no, he became kind of, he's so gross. I can't believe he's a one for you, Anna.
Only because I hate myself, not because I actually find him attractive.
he was kind of okay when he was younger, but mostly no.
Let's look. I'm gonna look him up too while we're Googling.
He's always kind of looked old. There's no like very young pictures of him, but
it's interesting though that he's sort of like a kind of tech entrepreneur, tech czar, because you know he's by far the most colorful one of them, because the other ones are literally like Zuck and Elon Musk.
Yeah,
it's like guys that have to get checked for melanoma when they go out in the sun once.
Oh well, then there was a Q post that was on his Instagram after he was found dead.
Yeah,
which is also just such a like annoying,
yeah,
effeminate thing to do.
Okay, no, Dasha, I agree with you, because I'm looking at younger photos and he was kind of like boring and unremarkable. I think he looks better as a gnarly old man.
Yeah, he kind of grew into his eccentricities, and that, well, I guess we're going to talk about this David Brooks op-ed about lookism.
Oh, yeah. I wonder what's going to happen when Dan Bilzerian suffers his like 967th heart attack, and people think that he was like off
that he
by
was
the
whacked
Illuminati
because he knew too much about getting pussy. He knew where the pussy was buried, and they had to off him.
Shall we move on to the next thing on the docket?
Yeah.
Any more comments about McAfee?
I really, I don't care.
I don't either. I really don't care. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to muster enthusiasm around it. It feels very manufactured.
Yeah, now that you're under the Tuscan sun, there's like other
exactly. I'm on some eat, pray, love shit, so
yeah,
I can't get wrapped up in any of these conspiracy theories again.
Yeah, it takes too much energy.
Now that I'm a elite. But speaking of kind of attractiveness, David Brooks wrote a totally pathetic op-ed in the New York Times called "Why Is It Okay to Be Mean to the Ugly?" In which he kind of makes a case for lookism as a particularly sinister form of bigotry.
Yeah.
Citing studies that attractive people have not only like a physical advantage, but people sort of project a moral superiority onto them. He says research suggests
no way.
Attractive people are more likely to be offered job interviews, more likely to be hired, and more likely to be promoted than less attractive individuals, more likely to receive loans, blah, blah, blah. And unattractive people. An American worker who's among the bottom 1/7 in looks earns about 10 to 15% less a year than one in the top third. But the bottom 7th is like, that's a very ugly quadrant. Like that's
okay, my big question is who decides who counts as unattractive in these surveys and studies? Like, who's the faceless committee behind the mirrored glass?
Yeah,
sitting there deciding who makes the cut.
They'll allude to like facial symmetry and stuff, but I know firsthand that attractiveness really transcends like symmetry. It's really more of like a vibe that people are basically kind of free to cultivate. I think I don't find McAfee attractive, but seeing photos of him younger and then older, I think he became more attractive, even though like objectively by some like committee's metric, you would be less attractive as you age. But I think becoming more of oneself makes someone more attractive, actually.
Yeah, becoming more of like a
I don't really buy
pirate.
I don't buy, like, I'm sure, yeah, like people who are stunningly attractive, yeah, have some like nominal advantage that I would basically just attribute to like very banal and normal like psychological factors.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think people who aren't like totally conventionally attractive or have like an awkward adolescence or early adulthood are more motivated to be successful in other realms and to like cultivate traits that endear people to them in spite of them not being like a perfect 10 or something, you know?
Yeah,
like being
maybe,
a podcaster or like starting a great podcast.
Yeah, and they
or
may
making
like,
an independent film. And then it doesn't matter that you have like a prominent facial mole.
Yeah.
You compensate through more ephemeral cerebral measures or something.
Yeah, my faint mustache and Groucho Marx nose has not stopped me from achieving what I've wanted to achieve in life. Yeah, I think, okay, like whenever people start to try to codify, taxonomize attractiveness, I kind of check out because there's a lot of, other external variables that go into it. Like confidence is really key.
Exactly.
I understand the argument that, you know, if you grew up with the feeling that you were unattractive, that might pay negative dividends in the future because you suffer from like a lack of confidence or something.
Right. But that's difficult to attribute to like an actual kind of like bigotry or active prejudice.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, like I'm going to quote Dr. Maya Angelou, who said that, you know, it's not what people do or say, it's how they make you feel in the end. And I think like if you have a kind of like big and warm personality, that goes a lot farther than being merely hot.
Exactly.
And I would actually also like devil's advocate and say that like personally the people that I've encountered who have the lowest self-esteem very often are like beautiful women who like are used to valuing themselves strictly on the basis of their looks, and they're almost like shy and receding, especially like beautiful tall people.
Interesting. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know what
like,
you mean.
yeah, I've met a lot of kind of like really beautiful wallflowery people in my life.
Yeah, and like I've often found myself more attracted to someone with kind of like a scrappy confidence.
Yeah, and also
rather than like a pristine physical beauty.
yeah, and like, you know, more importantly, I wonder why David Brooks of all people is writing this op-ed now. It's like a weird subject matter for David Brooks.
I did wonder, like what
Yeah.
he was on about. It seems like he's like smoked weed or something and had a hot take that he wanted to expand upon. He makes the case that we are a pagan culture.
Yeah.
And he says pagan culture holds up a certain ideal hero, those who are genetically endowed in the realms of athleticism, intelligence, and beauty. This culture looks at obesity as a moral weakness and a sign that you're in a lower social class.
Yeah.
Our pagan culture places, like, I don't even know what reality he's referring to.
Yeah, I would argue that I'm not even sure this is true anymore. I think for the first time in history, we actually identify with like weakness and ugliness on a cultural level, or at least like in the mainstream media. And also like, I don't know. It's funny because it's like David Brooks discovers kind of the natural, irreducible hierarchy, like biological hierarchy that can't be gamed by like equality or democracy. Like some people are hotter than others.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this part. Why are we so blasé about this kind of discrimination? Maybe people think lookism is baked into human nature and there's not so much they can do about it. Maybe it's because there's no national association of ugly people lobbying for a change. And I was like, wrong. This is like the whole purpose of Jamila Jamil's foundation.
Mm-hmm. I weigh.
Yeah.
And and there is so much it's not like lookism per se, but that's fundamentally what like fat acceptance, fat activism is about.
Yeah,
You know?
there's been like a paradigm shift in that, at least on the surface, like for example, like obesity is no longer considered weakness or whatever he calls it, or
I
moral
mean,
decrepitude.
it is, right? Like when they talk about kind of medical bias and stuff, like all of that stuff is true. But yeah, as you said, like ideologically, I think we affirm and celebrate weakness
Yeah.
and are a very decaying culture, basically.
Yeah. And then he ends on this very bizarre note where he says a society that celebrates beauty this obsessively is going to be a social context in which the less beautiful will be slighted. The only solution is to shift the norms and practices. One positive example comes oddly from Victoria's Secret, which replaced its angels with 7 women of more diverse body types. When Victoria's Secret is on the cutting edge of the fight against lookism, the rest of us have some catching up to do.
What a weirdo, man.
Yeah, David Brooks is also
what is he on about?
He's like unlock the secret that horniness is not about perfection, it's about abjection. But it's funny.
Do you think he's suffering from low self-esteem? I mean, even the title like of the piece, which maybe was like an editorial decision, but why is it okay to be mean to the ugly?
Yeah.
I would say in general, it's like our culture doesn't really is not permissive of meanness.
Well, I would like problematize that and say actually what happens a lot of the time, because truth claims have given over fully to like this kind of postmodern condition of warring subjectivities, is that who's ugly or not often depends on what team they play for, whether it's your team or not.
Right.
Even somebody who's unattractive, if they're like one of the good guys, they're sort of like awkwardly affable, my funny Valentine. And if they're on the bad guys team, they're like beyond the pale and like an example of like that physiognomy is real and that their outward features have been warped by their like inner
I do think you get
badness.
the face you deserve, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to like actually kind of slaw off the idea that that's true.
I think if you're like a virtuous, like exempting the extremes, you know, the bottom 7th quadrant and the top whatever, like obviously there's attractive people who aren't morally virtuous, but basically I think if you are a virtuous person with integrity, like it'll be reflected in your appearance. If you respect yourself, people can tell.
If you take care of yourself, yeah. And I think like, you know, as far as like kind of like genetics are concerned, it's really interesting because, you know, genetics are not like a hard law, they're a general guidebook. And I think like the way that kind of your genetics, for example, express themselves in your physical being varies depending on whether you take care of yourself or not.
Right.
Like, you know, those memes that go around, or they used to go around a couple of years ago, that were like, you're not ugly, you're just poor. And it would be like photos of like Kylie Jenner before and afters.
Well, that's made, you know, also a big part of it.
Yeah, it's like, I think like a lot of it has to do with just like, yeah, whether or not you take care of yourself, unfortunately, whether or not you have access to certain material means. And like,
yeah, it all kind of like to reduce, it feels dumb to even talk about it because it's such a half-baked like idea from David Brooks. It's so wrong on so many levels.
Well, I would just disagree with his basic premise that as a culture, we're at this point in time uniquely obsessed with beauty. I would say that actually that's
the
no
opposite
longer the case.
Is true. I think we're extremely aesthetically impoverished.
Yeah,
and really don't value beauty
Yeah.
at all. We value, like, I don't know, convenience and victimhood somehow.
Yeah, and democracy, but the wrong form of democracy.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't think we're a pagan culture at all. I think because the pagan stuff is like Polya harps on that all the time.
yeah.
And that's sort of her like utopian ideal kind of how like a society functions, or like it integrates kind of its like pagan impulses into like a society.
Yeah.
And but it's aspirational. It's like it's just not the case. I wish we were a more pagan culture.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I mean, the Victoria's Secret Angels thing is like case in point in that like there is no longer kind of an overall veneration of like an implicitly agreed upon like conventional standard.
I'm
Like
looking at
what's happened is that like everybody wants, again, the bar not just lowered but customized to suit their particular like identity flavor profile.
David Brooks isn't that ugly. He shouldn't be tripping about it. I'm looking at it. He's kind of a 1 for me.
Okay, wow. Let me look that up. He's just like he's a guy who would never be appraised by those criteria in the first place, because he's like a middle-aged white guy who's like,
He's certainly not in the bottom 7 attractiveness scale.
But
I think most people, it really is like a bell curve, you know, and most people are kind of somewhere in the middle, and it's fine, and they don't have the advantages maybe of being a great beauty, but they also aren't disadvantaged by like some facial deformity or like extreme asymmetry or something. It's most people fall somewhere in the middle, and lookism is basically irrelevant in that case.
Yeah, and by the way, it's like the bell curve, like you know, at one end of the extreme, you have people who are like, I guess, really ugly because they're like physically deformed, and nobody makes fun of those people because everybody feels sorry for them and understands that it's like not their fault. And also on the other extreme, you have like the extremely beautiful top 1 percentile of people who are also freaks of nature because all of their genetics aligned fortuitously, which is very hard to do. Most people have like a mix of like attractive and unattractive attributes, right? Like you have like
and
like you have pretty eyes but weird teeth, or you have like a nice body but bad skin or something like that, you know.
And attractiveness is really about the gestalt and kind of an impression that is made.
And it's funny
because the church bells are ringing. And
wait, I can't hear.
You can't. I can. It's my window is closed, but I can hear faintly. Incredible.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
If it wasn't so hard to communicate, I'd stay here. But the language barrier really is somehow harder than other places.
Yeah, but you're a Russian speaker, so I feel like it's not that hard for you to learn Italian.
Yeah.
Like if you stayed there for like 6 months, you'd be fine. You'd be conversational.
Ciao.
That's all you need to know. You need to know ciao, buongiorno.
Prego. Buongiorno, yeah. Espresso.
And it's really funny because, like, you know, it's weird that he cites this example of Victoria's Secret, which is just like a naked attempt at rebranding.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not, you know, a net positive or a net negative. It just sort of like is what it is, you know.
Seems kind of, the whole piece seems a little phoned in, like he ran out of ideas.
Yeah, it's like it reminded me of like the thing that happened this week when the kind of military adopting the rhetoric of like wokeness and anti-racism, when that guy, the General Miley, who's like the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, was like, I want to understand white rage, and I'm a white guy, at like a House hearing. And
wait, what did he say?
that he was like, recorded at a hearing saying that he, as a white man, wants to understand white rage.
Okay.
Meanwhile, this is the highest ranking officer of the American military. And people are
that's not good.
I mean, it's weird, but it's also not. Like, people are like locked into now debating whether his remarks are genuine or cynical. And it's like, probably a little bit of both.
Yeah. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's true that the U.S. military is like a multicultural institution that's moving away from high casualty ground wars to like automated drone wars.
Why was he on about white rage anyway?
I think like because the like wokeness, I guess, is the new jingoism. I don't know. It's like the new kind of like soft power export, but I think like it's fruitless.
Well, because they're trying to combat like domestic terrorism.
Right, yeah. And employ, as somebody else pointed out, a bunch of kind of iffy, translucent Pete Buttigieg types to be kind of back-end administrators and drone operators. And also are trying to bring more people of color into the fold. So I think it's like, fruitless and stupid to debate whether this is like a cynical thing or like a sign of progress. That's the wrong debate to have. Just like it's stupid to debate whether Victoria's Secret is doing body positivity or a cynical rebrand.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
I'm seeing what else did he say? It's interesting that he cited the statistic that the study that unattractive Black women take the biggest pay hit of all unattractive people. I think they earn like 63 cents to the dollar of their more attractive counterparts.
Systemic racism. That's all attributable to like more meaningful forms of prejudice.
Yeah, I don't think that's like
like racism and sexism.
Yeah, and it's funny because like, I've said this a million times before, but like one of the signs that we do not live in a white supremacist nation and that in fact we live in a very multicultural society is that the beauty norms, whether you like it or not, have really changed to incorporate darker skinned people.
I mean, I think it may be more like ethnically ambiguous, but I do think colorism is a thing.
Yeah, but that's like a stepping stone,
I don't know. I don't think actually like dark-skinned people have usurped like beauty norms. I think it's in a very kind of like mocha zone.
No, not at all. But I saw it's funny because I saw a funny tweet the other day of somebody was making kind of like a negative comment on it was like a GQ or Maxim cover. And it was like a side-by-side of like a Kate Upton cover from like 10 years ago maybe and like the new Tiana Taylor cover, and they were making the point, I think,
let me look up the Tiana Taylor cover.
I guess if you just Google Tiana Taylor
I
don't know if it's I don't remember. It's one of those like fake men's magazines that is actually only read by gay nerds, or as is read by nobody now. It was read by gay nerds in like 2006. But they were making this kind of point about like social decline because Tiana Taylor is like dark-skinned and is dressed in a tomboyish kind of aggressive fashion.
Androgynous.
Whereas, Kate Upton is like soft and blonde and whatever. And I was like,
Kate Upton, fantastic upper body, but down below, not so great.
No, but I was thinking like actually kind of my like bleeding heart libtard came out and I was like, what? Like Tiana Taylor looks just as good, if not better than Kate Upton. Like, what are you on
She
about?
looks
This woman's like a
way
specimen.
better
She's
than
so
Kate
hot.
Upton. She's insane.
She has 2 kids.
She looks
like,
great on this. She doesn't even look androgynous.
No, she looks like kind of like a little video girl from 1997 or something.
That
but she
waist
looks
is
really hot.
Oof.
And I was like, this actually to me was not an example of like wokeness in action or anything.
Yeah, no, I think that is very just kind of zeitgeisty. I can't believe Maxim is still around. It's Maxim, is the magazine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, the bigger question again is, why is Maxim still being published?
Who's reading Maxim?
Who's reading Maxim, yeah.
Magazine.
Literally, yeah, nobody. They have like a subscription of 3 people and like 2 of them are the editors, you know?
Anyway, should we talk about Mumford and Sons?
Yes, a band that I literally have, I don't know what they sound like. I've never heard a Mumford and Sons song, or actually I have, I'm certain of it, but in like one of those like coffee shops with succulents and $7 lattes, but
exactly. 100% you have.
You know, yeah, if you pointed me to a Mumford and Sons song, I would probably be like, oh yeah, but like, yeah.
They're super annoying. They suck ass. They suck really bad. It's like banjo. It's like Civil War core kind of banjo stuff.
Yeah. Which is ironic that the guy got canceled for being like a conservative and like a white nationalist or whatever, because their whole aesthetic is like the dregs of the Confederacy repackaged for like Williamsburg liberals.
I think they're English.
Oh, okay. So they're doing like American Confederacy role play.
They're doing like Americana. It's all very, very racist without even needing to like overtly be a fan of like what did he get in trouble for? I missed this scandal.
Me too. I saw it on Twitter and I was like, oh yeah, this is like kind of like.
So wait, he quit the band.
He quit the band.
Did we say that?
Yeah, his name is Winston Marshall, and he's like the banjo player in Mumford and Sons, and he published an op-ed in Newsweek explaining his decision to leave the band because, as he claims, he kind of ran afoul of woke pieties and it made life too difficult for his bandmates. In March, he tweeted at this like Antifa chronicler Andy No to congratulate him on his new book Unmasked, which then set off this firestorm of cancellation. He writes, over the course of 24 hours, it was trending with tens of thousands of angry tweets and comments. I failed to foresee that my commenting on a book critical of the far left would be interpreted as approval of the equally abhorrent far right. And then, he goes on, nothing could be further from the truth. 13 of my members were murdered in the concentration camps of the Holocaust. My grandmother, unlike her cousins, aunts, and uncles, survived. She and I were close. My family knows the evils of fascism painfully well, to say the least. To call me fascist was ludicrous beyond belief. And then here's the funniest line in his op-ed. I've had plenty of abuse over the years. I'm a banjo player after all.
Yes. Well, now he's not anymore. He's going to start a podcast or something.
He's going to start busking on the Williamsburg L stop.
Do you think things actually are okay between him and his bandmates, or do you think he was kind of ousted?
Nope. I think that they they probably didn't fire him, but they tacitly pressured him to leave.
Yeah, I bet things were tense at the studio, the Mumford and Sons practice space.
I think like either he's being a martyr and like performatively falling on his sword, or they really kind of like edged him out, or both, you know. There was something like really passive aggressive in his line that he wanted to make life easier for his bandmates because, you know, they are regarded as a unified front.
Right.
That didn't sit well with me.
There's I'm pulling up. There was Marky Smith, R.I.P. had a really great quote about. He gave an interview where he was complaining about playing festival shows with bands comprised of, quote, ass lickers. He said, we were playing a festival in Dublin the other week. There was this other group like warming up in the next sort of chalet, and they were terrible. I said, shut them cunts up, and they were still warming up, so I threw a bottle at them. The band said, that's the Sons of Mumford or something. They're number 5 in the charts. I just thought they were a load of retarded Irish folk singers.
Traveling bards of wokeness.
Well, the lead singer of Mumford and Sons is married to Carey Mulligan. That's another thing I know about them.
Okay.
And they live in like the English countryside together.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she wasn't happy with his banjo player either.
Yeah. Yeah. She like called them up and raged that a promising young woman was slated to win an Oscar, so they had to drop the loser.
Yeah, where are they going to find another banjo player?
They have to get a trans woman.
Smart.
Yeah, with like kind of a Charles, like a Manson girl look.
Casting call.
Yeah. And then he says, I
don't think trans people like Mumford and Sons.
No, probably not. I haven't met anybody who likes Mumford and Sons. I'm sorry to beat up on this guy, by the way. I feel his pain on some level, you know, like he says, I've spent much time reflecting, reading and listening. The truth is that my commenting on a book that documents the extreme far left and their activities is in no way an endorsement of the equally repugnant far right. The truth is that reporting on extremism at the great risk of endangering oneself is unquestionably brave. I also feel that my previous apology in a small way participates in the lie that such extremism does not exist, or worse, is a force for good. So I guess he apologized, now he's walking back. I kind of like how he set that up. Like, I was expecting him to walk his comments back even more, but he doubled down on them. And, you know, it's interesting. He does say, like, there's nothing wrong with being a conservative, even though he doesn't identify it as one because he sees himself more as, like, a liberal or a centrist. And
right,
I sympathize with that point. You know, like I was watching the Alex Jones documentary on Bohemian Grove the other day.
Oh,
and
cool.
Alex Jones rules. He's so cool and cute.
I know.
And in it, he says, like, kind of exasperatedly, he's like, I'm not a right winger. I'm not conservative. And I don't think he is. He's a guy who like does not map cleanly onto the matrix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he isn't.
Yeah.
He's doing his own thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the problem is that, like, I sympathize with this guy in that he has to now be like a little circus seal bouncing a ball in his nose for a bunch of liberals because
I just used that. I said to someone the other day, I said, I feel like a
circus seal.
I said I have to keep the ball in the air like a seal.
Yeah. Yeah, we all do, and I like sympathize with him having to like do this thing where he's like, by the way, the far right is equally repugnant and abhorrent. And, you know, I don't know a ton about Andy No, but I kind of feel like he's this guy that basically follows the Antifa around and puts himself into positions where he gets beat up to document their kind of violent excesses, you know?
Yeah, right.
But
he wrote a book about the far left?
About the Antifa that was like a New York Times bestseller, I guess.
Oh yeah.
That this is a book. And
I remember that guy. That guy was always around and all like in Portland, and he was like on the front lines of the great like LARP Antifa war.
Right. Yeah. And I feel bad for this guy because I was also thinking like this is the hill you're gonna die on. Like, Andy No. Like, you're not even like, you're getting canceled for liking Andy No, which is just depressing. Not like Charles Murray or Steve Saylor or somebody totally like untouchable. Like, come on now. Like,
well, maybe he'll triple down and become increasingly reactionary. Maybe he'll go on Tucker and stuff.
Yeah, and give a slightly more articulate interview than Ariel did. But yeah, I really do sympathize with kind of like old school earnest centrist liberal types at this point who are like legitimately confused and bewildered as to why they're being not only canceled but called conservatives or fascists. But the problem is that their worldview and their like means of defending themselves are obsolete.
I mean, Bill Maher is kind of like a classic centrist, classic liberal.
Yeah.
And he's kind of carved out an audience, much like us. Like, he's sort of set the tone and the stage and the limits of his own. Like, he's not getting canceled, but because like Mumford and Sons are part of the like flailing music industry, he has to fall on the sword.
And I mean, it's really it's a kind of question of audience too. Like, if you are coded as like left or liberal, people get way angrier than you if you're coded as conservative or right wing, because they don't pay attention as much to right wingers. They're in their own, everybody's in their own like little Warsaw ghetto.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem with this kind of like rationalist liberal approach, like which kind of aims to get through to its opponents through kind of facts and logic, is that it may be like moderate and honorable or whatever, but it doesn't work because, the people that you're dealing with don't they don't share like a common standard of conduct in wartime.
Exactly. And it's totally emotional and libidinous for people.
Yeah. And like these people are
all politics is sexual pathology, and there's just no reasoning with that.
Yeah, it's all like Freudian, and that's been kind of completely exposed, revealed in the last few years. And your opponents are like terrorists and guerrillas. They're not kind of like equal opponents. They want to like murder your dog, and they don't want to break bread with you or reach some consensus.
No, because they need to protect their own psyches.
Yeah, which is like what, also when people do this thing that like I've been guilty of, like myself, when people try to reason with them or try to bring up their ancestry or something, they smell blood.
Yeah.
They're like disgusted and revolted by this approach. I mean, this all freaks me out on a broader scale because I've heard like recently, I've heard a lot of people echo this idea that we're entering into a new dark ages.
How so?
Well, like, the idea that like people, there's a general decline, for example, in competence, in technological ability. I've seen some people argue that it's possible, for example, that we're hitting kind of a technological wall. That's kind of the argument of the stagnationists, that like innovation and progress have stalled, which leads to stalling out of the culture as well. It's like the Ross Douthat argument.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But the Douthat, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
It does seem that way, but it seems like it's like Douthat says, like Rome was falling for like 400 years,
Yeah.
It's like such a slow process, actually.
Yeah, it's not like a deluge, it's a leak.
Exactly.
It's like a punctured breast implant that leaks into your sternum and gives you autoimmune disorder. But like setting that aside, like on a more basic level, it gives you like, there's just like an overall decline in basic comprehension and literacy, like in the basic skills of like following a line of reasoning and argument,
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably true.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure if that's always been the case and we only see it now because there's more like availability of information, or whether there has been an actual decline. I think probably a little bit of both. And it made me think again of this like Ivan Illich point that I bring up of like iatrogenics, right? Which he talks about in reference to healthcare, that there was like a threshold or watershed where advances in medicine and healthcare stopped being unanimously like positive and beneficial and became harmful instead. But you can also apply that to the concept of like mass media and mass literacy in a way. So that's what freaks me out, that like that kind of like totally postmodern reality where you can't get through to anybody.
Yeah, but don't you think it's also like, I don't know, it's such a microcosm of like media squabbling.
Yeah, totally.
Like Twitter, like cancel culture is such a like Twitter phenomenon, and in that way is actually really divorced from and not reflective of like larger social trends. It just feels a little myopic or something, or like there's
Yeah.
something else going on. I guess that is what you're saying with the postmodern reality. Like there is something else going on that we just don't have access to. And the
Yeah.
only reality that's like reflected to us is this like increasingly broken, retarded one.
Yeah, that is that you're right, is like an unreality and a simulation that basically only existed for a time on like college campuses and in social media, but that gets reaffirmed all the time because that's all that people talk about. And I was thinking, like, on a positive note, on like a compassionate note, there's this whole fixation in the culture on like these ideas of compassion and empathy, which are often used actually to terrorize people. But the fact that exists, that it's being like codified in language, suggests that people collectively intuit that our culture has become too cruel, that there is in fact like a real lack of compassion and empathy.
Yeah,
but it's
that makes
unclear
sense.
how to like break through to the other side.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get into this whole like existential
No. It's
argument over
good.
the Mumford and Sons guy. A band, like I said, that I will never listen to willingly, at least.
Yeah. I agree with you fundamentally.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's all, everything just feels kind of manufactured.
Yeah.
And like it refers fundamentally to a microcosm. And
Yeah,
that people like in their actual real lives that we have less and less access to, especially post COVID.
Yeah, it's
like
it's fake. It's not real. Like the reality on the ground is like so much nicer and cheerier, and like like I go to like the laundromat and the lady who owns the place with her husband pinches my baby's cheeks. The other day I was like struggling to get my like little stroller up the stairs, and this guy who sells like random crap by the side of my apartment handed me, like, he came over and like gave me some baby booties for the baby, which was so sweet.
Oh,
like he didn't have to do that. He helped us move.
yeah.
Like people are a lot nicer, more compassionate in
Well,
reality.
yeah, and being on like on location on a production, I feel very like embedded kind of in like a workplace more than I
Mm-hmm.
usually do, and I'm like interfacing with people constantly who I've been working with for, I mean, like 6 or 7 months now.
Yeah.
And I really respect and care for a lot of like my coworkers and like the crew, and like and politics doesn't like really enter into like the decency
Yeah, it's nice,
and like
right?
the
Like,
humanity of actually just like being amongst people working towards a common goal,
yeah,
people like respecting and taking their jobs seriously and doing good work.
yeah. And by the
And
way,
that,
like even when your colleagues, your coworkers are like annoying or over dramatic or whatever, you
I'm
can
sure plenty of them are
empathize with
like,
them, and like
yeah,
because they're like 3D people in front of you,
exactly.
and
And
you
I'm
can.
sure many of them, if they knew, or maybe they do know about my little podcasting venture, are like ostensibly woke, or like would find some of my like takes to be abhorrent. But when you actually are interfacing with human beings,
Like the
yeah, who,
time you
like you
said
said, are
David Brooks
three-dimensional.
was a one on the binary. Yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
Exactly. Yeah. I hope
She
they're not
said refund
listening.
the police.
Well, that's one of my coworkers. Yes, used to be a
Yeah.
cop.
Well, yeah, as it turns out, yeah,
And
things are
we're,
a lot like more kind of like, yeah, like friendly and amenable in real life.
yeah, yeah. And so maybe breaking on through to the other side is really just a case of like logging off.
Yeah, or or applying the kind of human model to, like, giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm always struck, like, the thing that I'm always struck by is how like people on the internet are not only stupid, but they're uncharitable. Like their interpretations, their reads of things are not, it's forgivable. For me, it's like forgivable that people are, stupid or wrong sometimes. What is not forgivable for me is when they jump to the most uncharitable conclusion.
Constantly, right?
That's like very obviously like not borne out by reality. Like when they interpret, like there's like a tendency, for example, like on the kind of self-identified online left or whatever, there's this idea that like basically they have like some monopoly on humor or irony, and the people that they deem their enemies or their opponents are incapable of humor or irony. So anything that they do or say, if it's funny, it's unintentionally so.
Right. No, it's very, very retarded.
Yeah.
And just a minefield of like projection and bad faith arguments.
Yeah. So I guess my interest going forward is how to like get out of that type of situation without resorting to this kind of liberal rationalist outlook, which has its actually as its logical conclusion the total breakdown of social norms.
Totally. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's the dark ages are increasingly antisocial, definitely, I would say.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
On that note, should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
We've done like
it.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, get well soon, Mumford and Sons guy.
Yeah, R.I.P. McAfee, if you're really dead, which you may very well not be, and it's really none of my business.
Oh yeah, that's smart. Maybe he faked his death like Kenny Powers, and he'll come back with like a perm or something. Anyway. We'll see you in hell.
I'll be back next week, so we'll resume our regular scheduling.
Yeah.
See you in hell.
See you in hell.